And welcome into the Sports Shuffle. It's January 19th, 2024.
2 more regular pick sessions left to go. 2-week hiatus and NFC Super Bowl.
7 total games and whatever you want to consider the Pro Bowl is all we have left in the NFL season before we roll into 2024, get prepared for drafts and back to the grind of preparing for fantasy and rookie drafts and all that fun stuff in the offseason. I am flying Ryan Gokers along with
Tampa Motormouth Joe Berlin here on a slightly chilly Florida Friday evening.
It is beautiful. It's going to be a high in the high 50s here tomorrow, which is much better than most of the country and also exactly where I like it. So I'm very happy for this weather. Do have still some chapped lips from last weekend because it was similarly cold and windy at my disc golf tournament where I finished Saturday in first place.
Nice.
And then fell to a tie for second on Sunday.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So
leading after the first and second round and then poop the bed.
So you were close to grasping and drinking from the cup of glory and victory, and then you were relegated to Stephon Diggs watching somebody else hoist the trophy.
Yeah, I was tied with 5 holes left after blowing the lead and being down by 3, coming back, blew the lead, got back even, was tied with 5 holes to go, and then the wheels came off a little bit.
Did you do a Tiger Woods throw the disc and then curse?
Yeah, that's kind of what happened. You end up behind the basket on a whole different hole in the woods, and it's not great. But anyways, good time, second place in that's still not too bad. Better than 6 NFL teams can say from last weekend. So, we're not going to talk in depth about last week's games because, well, they're last week's games. We got 4 very big matchups to talk about.
Although one of the best memes I saw out there was the woman yelling at the cat meme. Somebody photoshopped a cowboy hat on her head, and her dialogue is, "We're America's team." And the cat responds, "America loves it when you lose."
Yeah, so we'll have a little bit of comment on them, but we'll quickly go through the 6 games. The first one, well, it was a pretty good game until halftime. Then the Texans 45-14 rout over the Cleveland Browns. The team of destiny narrative, the Joe Flacco off the couch to lead the Browns to salvation narrative fell flat in Texas. Not the only thing that fell flat in Texas last week, and we'll get to it.
That Stroud is pretty good.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud looks like the next great quarterback in the NFL. I think he's going to be better than Herbert. He's going to be on par with a guy like Burrow. I don't think he's got the running chops of a Josh Allen or something like that, but I think he's going to be one of the best pocket passers in the league before too long if he's not already there. The Browns, great season. I mean, you got to remember, they lost Deshaun Watson. They lost Nick Chubb. They kept getting hurt. All
quarterbacks.
5 starting quarterbacks, 4 of which played 2 or more starts. Great season for Cleveland, but it does end
PJ Walker
astounding thud.
DTR, then finally Wacko for Flacco.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, they want to keep him around. I don't know if that's going to work because Deshaun Watson is going to come back and be the starter because they've paid him too much not to do that.
Just a little bit, little. And the Raiders think it's too much money that they pay him.
Yeah. The Texans, though, do advance the dream season, the miracle season, the Cinderella season continues next week.
2-win team the last time we saw them.
Yeah, they were the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 overall pick when Arizona traded away the number 3 overall pick. They were expecting something in that same range back this year in that package deals they traded to go get Will Anderson. The Texans did. Now they're going to have a pick in the mid-20s. Arizona's going to be coming back, so that one not so good on the return on investment. But Texans moving on. Next up, the 4th coldest kickoff temperature.
It was so cold.
NFL history.
They ended up having, I saw a story, 15 fans apparently either suffered frostbite or hypothermia from the game.
Of course, talking about the Kansas City Chiefs 26-7 win over the Miami Dolphins. And as soon as we saw the temperature of this game, we should have known.
Dolphins were toast.
Well, they were not toast. Toast gets hot. But yeah, the Chiefs -4 was actual temperature feels like was closer to minus 25 at kickoff, fell into the minus 30 range. There's reports that players have mild frostbite in some places that played in this game. Patrick Mahomes' helmet exploded on contact because
And
plastic.
Andy Reid's frozen mustache.
Andy Reid's got the frozen mustache. A lot of good images from this game, unless you are like me, a Dolphins fan who was very disappointed in this result.
What?
But the Chiefs proved they're still a team and a force to be reckoned with by dominating the Dolphins, who, given the cold weather, did put them at a distinct disadvantage for their normal climate, which they showed during the game was a balmy 69 degrees.
I think I heard one of the play-by-play people on Westwood One say that it was a difference of 98 degrees between Arrowhead and Hard Rock.
Yeah, 98 degrees, not the 90s boy band, but just the air temperature difference between Miami and Kansas City for a NFL playoff game. That definitely does not work in Miami's favor. Kansas City, though, saying they are good in the cold bodes well for where they're going next week.
What did work in Miami's favor, because the 33rd team posted the what was traded for Tyreek Hill and the only asset that was any worth, Rashid Rice.
Yeah. Rashid Rice was great in this game. He's going to be a good player for a few years to come. But the Chiefs continue to make their run. They've had 5 straight years in the AFC title game. They're looking to make it 6 if they can win.
One of the other receivers was Sky Moore.
Yeah, he didn't pan out so good.
Nope.
Next up, we're going to go to Sunday, where we had the surprise of the weekend, I would say, in a game that was not as close as the final score indicates. That's the Packers' 48-32 win over the Dallas Cowboys. This game was 27-0 and over in the second quarter.
You know the meme with the Cowboys choking the playoffs. I was surprised. I figured that they would do it in the divisional round. They beat the Bucs last year, but no, they got absolutely smacked by the Packers.
Yeah, they got smashed. Green Bay still has not lost in AT&T Stadium. Jordan Love, to the chagrin of the NFC North, looks like the next great Packers quarterback coming on.
And any week where Skip Bayless is sad and bummed out can't be an all terrible bad week, can it?
Yeah, and after 3 straight years of 12-5, the fans want Mike McCarthy gone, but he will be returning. The Packers, though, first ever number 7 seed in the NFL playoffs to win a game. Of course, they just implemented that about 3 years ago.
Well, I was listening, and I heard 2 narratives. One, that McCarthy actually has been a successful coach regular season, has gotten to the playoffs a decent amount of times, not done too well in the playoffs, and still has a year on his contract, so probably why the signing. And then the other thing you have, of course, Jerry Jones' ego that says one thing, that he wants to win, but the more and more that you tend to look at the organization, you tend to realize that the other narrative I heard is that Jerry Jones is more interested in being the voice of the Cowboys, and if he were to let Mike McCarthy go and bring in a Bill Belichick, there's no way in heck that he would continue to be the voice of the Cowboys, because Belichick's ego has to be as big as Jerry Jones in a different way. Bill Belichick is
in a won championship, so sit down and shut up kind of way.
Yeah, so he comes in. You're not going to be doing as many of those interviews in the locker room and on the radio, and that's something that once you kind of get into the whole rhythm of it, I can imagine it gets in your blood, in your veins, and it's something you just feed off of, and you're like, yeah, I gotta have more of this. You just become addicted to it, and you bring somebody else in who's going to take a huge chunk of that away from you.
Yeah, not to mention Mike McCarthy's first 4 years in Dallas resemble the first 4 years of Andy Reid in Kansas City before they got Patrick Mahomes. He's got a comparable career record as guys like Sean Payton and John Harbaugh in Baltimore that they've had a pretty good run of success. And Mike Tomlin even. No one's calling for Tomlin, but no one else is really calling. No one's calling for John Harbaugh's job or It's just weird that it's Dallas. And of course, the Dallas Best Buys had a great day on Monday because of all the TVs they had to replace because the Dallas Cowboys have that stereotype as well. And Dallas, though, going home early for 13th consecutive
You
playoff appearance.
wonder if the Best Buy wants to like add extra playoff protection to the extended warranty. Oh, are you a Dallas Cowboy fans? You gonna be watching the playoffs? Okay, hang on. We have another warranty we want to sell you.
Yeah, it's called the Jera, and you need it in case you throw a remote through the TV, not just into it, through it. All right, next up, though, we have the game of the weekend that just occurred. The Lions-Rams 24-23. Lions win this game.
Finally, a
Back
competitive
in
game
fourth,
in the
you had
wild card weekend.
you had Matt Stafford coming home to Detroit. There was a lot of hype
Not
around that.
Yeah, not that storyline was done to death ad nauseum ad infinitum.
And I'll say this. I think the family and the whole no Stafford jersey thing was a bar. It wasn't the Lions themselves. The whole family of the Staffords handled it right. They said, hey, we still love Detroit. It's just not going to be that way on Sunday. The kids came in with shirts and jackets that said born in Detroit, raised in LA. And after the game, the Staffords came out and said, hey, you know what? We are rooting for the Lions. Now that we're out, we're rooting for the Lions. We want to go see them do great things. I think for most teams who are out, Miami, myself included, I think I'm rooting for Detroit the rest of the way. I know that goes to against your hat that we'll talk about here in a little bit, but Detroit's that little team that never has. It'd be good to see them make a run. Tampa got a title in the last 5 years.
The Staffords can probably afford the $1,100 tickets at Ford Field.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But Detroit gets a 24-23 win. It's powered by Amon-Ra St. Brown and rookies Gibbs and
Powered by
Laporte
the Sun God.
Detroit's going to be a tough out. I mean, we're going to talk about who they're playing here shortly. Of course, Joel is a Bucs fan, so he already knows.
Yeah,
waiting on that game. But the Lions are going to be a tough out, and there's a real possibility it's Detroit, Green Bay in the NFC title game, and I am all for it. Next up, we have to talk about the cowards that live in Buffalo because they decided to move their too cold and snowy game to a different day. Unlike Miami, Kansas City, who manned it out in the cold, the Bills had the entire town come out and shovel their field clean, and then we're still too soft to play.
Tough $20.
Buffalo, shame on you. I know it's not your decision, but shame on you.
Tough way to earn $20 an hour. Ouch.
Hey, it's $20 an hour, and you're doing a service to the city and your garbage team that I hate so much. But I picked the Steelers based on they're going to be able to run the ball in the wind better than Buffalo. They moved the game. My pick, as soon as they moved the game, I'm like, well, that was a stupid pick now. I don't care because I'm getting demolished, and that was a wrong pick either way. But I stand by it. If that game doesn't get moved because of the bad weather in Buffalo, build a dome. Detroit has a dome. Build a freaking dome. Minnesota has a dome.
You're not going to be like Mike Tomlin and now leave the press conference and up, right?
No, we're not going to ask me about my future with the podcast and all that, so it's okay. But once the cowards finally decided to host the Pittsburgh Steelers, they did win the game 31-17. Didn't look hyper convincing for about half that game.
The flaming tables. Apparently somebody was jumping onto a flaming
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this one time. And when I one time, I mean this will probably be the first time I say it. Buffalo.
There's nothing else to do there.
Buffalo is the worst fan base in pro sports. Because they have nothing else to do. And they still are obnoxious, unrealistic turds. And their biggest hobby, we're so badass, we're Buffalo, is they jump through plastic folding tables. Give me a break. Bills Mafia! Okay, sure. Delusional, psychopathic people. Get over yourself. Worst fan base in sports. At least in Philly, they will tell you suck to your face, not cower in fear.
And
worst fan base in sports.
They'll even throw popcorn on you as you're exiting the stadium.
Yeah, I will take someone snowballing Santa over a table jumping buffoon.
Because apparently,
apparently
there was a video of somebody trying to dump some popcorn on Nick Sirianni.
Oh wow, that's a bold move there too. But I digress. Buffalo, Get your crap together. But after the Cowards moved the game, they do beat the Steelers 31-17. They got a nice lead in this game, and they let the Steelers back in it. Khalil Shakir has a great effort to put this game out of reach late. Buffalo does advance, and since we already know what happened with Kansas City will be going to Buffalo for next week's game.
You might have heard this is Patrick Mahomes' first time that he's in the playoffs on the road.
First road playoff game for Pat Mahomes, and I sincerely hope he wins. Yeah, I don't care for Buffalo at all. Anyways,
I'm sure the audience could not have guessed that one iota.
I was trying to be subtle about it, so it makes sense they couldn't guess. But yeah, they get the job done. Buffalo looks like they're going to be a tough out. I mean, at this point, every team left.
That was subtle.
Game. Yeah. Not a fan of the team, the city, or most of the people that I met in Buffalo. It's just how it is. Other than the Anchor Bar, great wings, everything else, take it over the falls. All right, last up, we'll talk about your Buccaneers, I guess. 32-9 home win.
Beating the JV team.
Yeah, over the Philadelphia Eagles, who had a monumental collapse going from 10-1.
That was insane. I mean, I figured they would at least score double digits. What the hell?
Yeah, 10-1 to 11-6, and then demolished by the division winner for the worst division in football, 32-9. Baker Mayfield looks great right now. Rashad White's good. This defense stepping up, and how much of this is Philadelphia's collapse and the problem within? The coordinators, both are all just out of whack. There's calls for Sirianni's job, which they won the Super Bowl last year. It's crazy.
Clap, Patricia. Matt, clap, Patricia.
Who could be going to Atlanta possibly with Bill Belichick? Should he go there? Because why not get that crappy band back together? Because it worked so well once Brady left. But the Buccaneers, against all odds, they are going on to the divisional round. They'll go to Detroit.
Win against the Eagles. They freaking stomped the hell out of them.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise. Not that they won, because I think with Philadelphia coming in so bad,
it was how bad it was.
It didn't look like Philly wanted to play.
You know, the play calling. You know, have DeAndre Swift run the ball. Ooh, let's throw it. Pew. Yeah. That didn't work.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts had a rough season. Fantasy-wise was good because he had a lot of rushing touchdowns, but a 23-15.
Then hurt middle finger. Then A.J. Brown having a social media temper tantrum. Like,
yeah, it's
Sirianni is having one of them tough convos with Loria this week.
It's one of those things when you go from the Super Bowl, you do get some leeway, but when you go to the Super Bowl to 10-1 and then collapse, it's not a good look. So I think Sirianni goes into next season needing to prove that he is the right coach for this job, which is insane. Saying he was
what's the plan, and the plan needs to be more than you have confidence in everybody in this building. I don't think that's gonna fly.
But the Eagles go home. The question on everybody's mind is what's going to be
as I've seen
this year.
Cry Eagles Cry, definitely trending.
Yes, a great song for this weekend. And somebody at work has to shave their head because they're an Eagles fan who made a bet with a Bucs fan. And I can't wait to see it because this guy's going to look real dumb with a bald head.
Do people have their phones ready to take the picture?
It's not happened yet. I'm sure there will be plenty of pictures. But it's gonna wait a couple weeks. He's going on a trip. He's got some family stuff. He's got some work stuff. We're not gonna make him look dumb for that. But when he gets back, it's gonna be go time. So that is the quick recap of the divisional round.
Wild card round.
We're going to talk about the division round in a second. Jim Harbaugh making the rounds with Atlanta and the Chargers interviewing.
No, Belichick looks like he's maybe zeroing in on Atlanta.
Well, Jim Harbaugh is getting a second interview scheduled with the Falcons as well. So it's not a done deal on Bill Belichick yet.
So who's going to get the rose from the Falcons?
I think it would be Harbaugh. I just have this funny feeling that Belichick's going to go in with his clout. He's going to want to bring in all his guys. He's going to bring in his system that did not work without Brady. And he's 71, 72. You put your wagon together with this guy at the helm, it doesn't work out, and 2-3 years down the line, you could be in just as bad of a situation. Remember, the Patriots were 4-12 this year, and they've been on the decline since they lost Brady.
Mac Jones is not even a one-quarter Brady.
Mm-mm. Not even close. And I don't think Belichick's going to go from a quarterback that doesn't work to a quarterback that doesn't work.
Oh, you mean that you don't consider Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke an upgrade from Mac Jones? Yeah,
Not really. I think it's a lateral move. But anyways, let's go to divisional matchups that we have.
Quick. Some top stories. We've already talked about the McCarthy, and everybody is shocked in Dallas, and Skip Bayless is sad. That's not a bad thing. Then you end up having, of course, Irsay end up suffered a suspected overdose. So that was interesting because the police treated Colts owner Jim Irsay for a suspected overdose December 8th in his home, where authorities apparently found the 64-year-old unresponsive and struggling to breathe. The police report states that officers administered Narcan, hopefully if I said that right, in medicine that rapidly reverses a opioid overdose at the scene. So hopefully he's okay, but you tend to remember that I think it was Josh McDaniels who had Irsay over at his house, and after he ended up trashing the bathroom, his wife was like, I don't think you should sign with the Colts, and that's how he ended up with the Raiders, even though that didn't do well. And go ahead.
Jim Irsay is a disaster, and to do that, be found not responsive and face no punishment for his crimes because he's a billionaire. It's just absurd.
And then, of course, some interesting Diamond Sports. I believe they're the company behind the greatness, and I'm definitely being sarcastic, Bally Sports, which I know has not exactly received rave reviews on the interwebs, but apparently bankrupt broadcaster Diamond Sports is receiving a lifeline from Amazon for The Athletic that reporting that a $115 million, a la Dr. Evil, investment. Diamond carries TV rights for 37 pro teams, but the true outcome of the scenario remains unclear. Company did confirm that some of the broadcasts will be on Prime Video.
Well, a lot of people have that anyways. Unfortunately, we do have to talk quickly about the Peacock stream that got 23 million viewers. Unfortunately, that means it was successful, which means they're going to pull this crap again.
Mark's safe from being angry about Peacock streams.
Yeah, we have Peacock because my wife likes Dateline, and we both like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There's a couple other things she watches. It's more her, but we have it for that, so it's not that big of a deal if it's on Peacock because we have it. But they started doing this with like Paramount Plus. We got rid of Netflix in the last year. They start doing that, it's going to piss people off because people cut the cord to save money. Now you have to pay for all this extra stuff.
Its own streaming service.
Yeah, it's a big money grab, of course. The one thing I will say, whenever I hear people be like, "Oh, billionaires need to give their money away," one, I do agree. You don't need $50 billion. But two, rich people are going to find a way to take your money. They're going to find a way. They don't want to lose it. They're going to find a way. But unfortunately, highly viewed game. So that was a success that they will do again. Any more news, Joel?
Nope. That was just some of the more interesting stories that kind of popped up. I did see, I think the Raiders are closing in on Antonio Pierce being named because the Raiders are already paying John Gruden not to coach the team, and now Josh McDaniels not to coach the team. So they can't afford another coach to not coach their team.
Yeah, I think it's a good reason or a good idea to hire him. He was good for them. So let's go to the divisional matchups, and we'll start with game number 1. Houston at Baltimore, the 1 versus the 4 seed. Baltimore really hasn't played a game in 3 weeks. They had the bye week last week, week 18. They benched at least as many starters as they could. So they're going on 3 weeks of rest. So we have the rest versus rust argument at play here. Houston, with C.J. Stroud, who led the league in yards per game, looks like a team that could go in there and cause some problems. They played week one. Baltimore dominated in CJ Stroud's first ever start, but this was a team that was badly injured on the offensive line for Houston. And of course, CJ Stroud's first start, he wasn't what he is right now. They were still running Damian Pierce. Remember that? Damian Pierce. No, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I remember drafting him. Hashtag
So,
star.
Baltimore, though, no game in 3 weeks, essentially. Number one seed. They're going to be rested. They're going to be as healthy as they can be. They now have Dalvin Cook on the active roster. Used to know after coming off that big win, offense, defense clicking against Cleveland, I think they come in at least very, very confident in this game. Baltimore, obviously the one seed, you're going to come in riding high. Lamar Jackson's like the MVP of the year of the league. Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, as you said, the Ravens has basically had 2 weeks off, 3, depending on how you look at it. So, big question is, as you mentioned, did they rest up or rust up? And while Stroud has had an amazing run, plus now a playoff win under his belt, I think the Ravens were rolling into the postseason. Lamar Jackson has not played basically once again for 3 weeks, and I think you really need that rest time because we know how banged up that team was. At one point, their injury roster was about the same as their 53-man roster. It was just holy cannoli. Starting with J.K. Dobbins, and just every time you turned around, it just got worse. Ravens have just won only 2 playoff games in the last 10 years, but while the Texans can make it a fight and hang around, English, hard language, I think that the Ravens are locked in on a certain trophy, channeling their head coach's desire to stay in pace with his brother. Jim going, hey, I've got the national trophy. And now John's going to be like, hey, I need another trophy so I can go right back to Jim. And
It's a fight.
yeah, exactly. And I think that defense particularly is just the secondary should challenge Stroud with his wide receiver core enough. Plus, don't forget the Ravens special teams that can pull a return TD literally out of their butts when you don't expect it. And Ravens have definitely destroyed some major teams. Yeah, destroyed, not beat, destroyed. They destroyed your fish, and they utterly, utterly destroyed the San Francisco 49ers. And plus the other thing is always seemed to really be their Achilles heel has been Lamar Jackson trying to stay healthy. And this is one of the first years in memory you haven't had Huntley having to come in for the last few games or the last 2 games. It has been all Lamar all the time. And that's why I think they are ready to climb to the top and grab destiny this year. I think the Ravens snapped the playoff slump. 37-30 as I think the Texans definitely hang around and don't fold.
I'm taking Houston. I'm believing the hype. This team has improved as the season's gone along. The defense has stepped up greatly. I do think Baltimore comes out sluggish. There's no guarantee the weather's going to be good, and that could work against them. It could work for them later in the game, but if you come out sluggish and the weather's going to make life difficult for you, Houston can get on top of them big time, and I think this D'Amico Ryans led team is good enough to pull this upset. Houston has been just dominant of late. And what they did to Cleveland was very impressive because Cleveland put a scare into Baltimore a couple times this year. Once. The other time was DTR, and they didn't put up a fight at all because DTR is terrible. But I just think Houston's figuring something out. Their confidence is growing. CJ Stroud has absolutely no fear. And I think Baltimore can come out just a little too slow,
You're
fall a
cursing
little
yourself
too far behind.
with the other B.
Yeah. I think Houston gets it done. Anyways, moving on.
Going to Santa Clara.
I want chaos this week. I fully admit that. Next up, Green Bay at San Francisco.
Sort of like, did you ever see the Cannonball Run?
Not well enough.
Dom DeLuise's character, Captain Chaos. Dum dum dum.
Yeah. Anyways, Green Bay at San Francisco. Jordan Love has been spectacular all season long, and this ragtag bunch of receivers who are not well known or highly heralded have been getting the job done of late. And then Aaron Jones last week looked like Aaron freaking Jones for the first time all year.
Looked like player I drafted that didn't do much in the remainder of the year.
Again, don't pay attention to the 32 points that Dallas put up. The defense played spectacular football for the Packers last week.
That was a worse
A lot of
loss
those
for the
garbage time
Cowboys than the
touchdowns.
score was reflective of.
Yeah, I think he got 22 points in the fourth quarter in garbage time, pure garbage time, never had a shot. San Francisco, again, they've basically had 2 weeks off before this game, so they're going to be going on 3 weeks. Rust versus rest once again. Brock Purdy is still the most doubted quarterback in the NFL, even though he's been very, very good. I think Brock Purdy's a great quarterback, and I think it's kind of a shame he's being lumped into, well, Shanahan's his coach, so that's why he's good. It's like, he can be good too. He's better than Garoppolo was. He's better than Trey Lance. He's better than a lot of the other quarterbacks they've had under him. And oh, well. They still also have Kittle, McCaffrey, Samuel, Ayuk. That defense is amazing. So this could either be a very low-scoring game or a very high-scoring game. It could be a blowout or it could be a nail-biter. I think the lower-scoring game favors the 49ers. And I think the higher-scoring game favors the Packers. And I think defense for the 49ers has to be broken where the Packers are going to have to hold on for dear life. That being said, 1 versus 7 seed. Can Green Bay get it done again? Or is San Francisco going to retain their dominance of late against Green Bay?
All right, so we got Packers, we got 49ers, and Packers had an amazing run. Much of America, of course, thanks you for sending the Cowboys to the golf course early. The hoodie has one less landing spot now. Of course, it's keeping Mike McCarthy. Unless the Packers just get out ahead like 14-0, and I have trouble trying to see that happen. I think it's going to be a case of CMC just outperforming Aaron Jones, and that Niner wide receiver core is far more talented than that youthful Packer core that I know you definitely have a bright future that's ahead. They are an amazing, talented group, but I just think the Niners expose Joe Barry's defense big time, and the Pack exit the playoff freeway this weekend, going Niners 34-27.
I'm taking Green Bay. I want chaos, damn it. I'm starting to believe that Jordan Love is going to be the next coming of Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. I think this wide receiver core is sneaky good. And the fact they have 4 or 5 guys plus 2 tight ends plus a running back that's getting hot, I think this offense is liable to explode. Let's not forget, Dallas has a very good defense, not based on what you saw last week, of course, but over the course of the season, I think they started the season with like back-to-back shutouts over New York teams. I think they were like 30-0 against the Jets or something like that, and 40-0 against the Giants, who were up like 70 points after 2 weeks. They have a good defense in Green Bay. Embarrass them. The defense the last few weeks, since Joe Barry's really got on the hot seat, has started to turn things around. They're starting to get a little bit more healthy as well. And again, I can see San Francisco coming out and just being a little sluggish early. And I will say, for all of the credit or hate Brock Purdy has gotten, the one thing he has not really shown the ability to do is come from a decent deficit. Not that he's had many opportunities, but the couple of times, like against Baltimore, they fell behind. It got worse. And I think if Green Bay can get up early, and you mentioned it, you don't see that happening. I kind of do. Again, rest versus rust. It almost always falls rust, at least for the first quarter to 2 of the game. And a team like Green Bay, who's getting hot, the offense is rolling, that rust could become 27-7 at halftime, like it was against Dallas. And then, well, now you have Aaron Jones and this offense just controlling the clock, slowly getting more points, and Brock Purdy having to rush his way back into the game, and that's not his strong point. So do I believe it's going to be Green Bay necessarily? But I want them to win. I think they have a legitimate chance. So I'm going to take the upset here as well and say Green Bay gets it done in San Francisco. And again, I want chaos. Next up, Tampa Bay at Detroit. Joel's Bucks, after a thrashing of Philadelphia, go to the Motor City to face the Detroit Lions. You got their first home win, first playoff win in 30 2 years. Detroit's offense and defense looks like it's pretty well balanced. The offense playing pretty well. Defense could be a touch better, but still very solid. But the Bucs defense of late has looked fantastic, only allowing 9 points to the Eagle after shutting out the Panthers the weekend before. The offense, though, they've been fairly inconsistent, but Baker Mayfield the last few weeks has looked much better. They played this game in Tampa earlier this season where Detroit won 20-6. This should, I think, Kansas City Buffalo is going to get the headlines as the biggest, best game of the week. I think this is going to be the most competitive game of the week. I really do. I think both of these teams are kind of coming in. I don't want to say not expecting they be where they are, but kind of not expecting to be where they are because Detroit is, well, Detroit. They don't make it this far. And the Bucs, they're in the NFC South. They were struggling to win the division when they were all below 500. So both teams come in with a little bit of house money. Who do you got, Joel?
Yeah, I want to believe in the Bucs. Want to cheer for them. I hope they win. But do I believe that they will win? As you just look at the Bucs benefiting from the Eagles' pathetic play calling, as the Eagles were fully overexposed from the frauds they were, and even the Bucs had the Bucs stop the tush push, the fabled tush push. They're guaranteed finishing. Boom. And while Baker baked, Hurts was bottled up and stymied seemingly at every turn. And the Bucs had an easy night. Lions had a nail biter with the Rams. So, well, not a lot of the focus will be on the lack of defense, because I know that's definitely been the Achilles heel of the Lions big time. Remember the game where the Saints almost came back for goodness sakes and almost won. And how many times Lions had to pull something out of their wazoo to win the game because all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, they're catching up, or oh crap, they have a 1 possession lead and we got to do something, and they did it. So yeah, that defense is definitely going to be a huge, huge flaw. But I tend to think that the Lions just have their high octane offense, and that will outdistance the Bucs with more options at wide receiver, running back. Wide receiver. You have Jameson Williams, the Sun God, and I know Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, definite fair comparison, but 2 RBs with the Lions as opposed to 1 RB.
And the greatest rookie tight end of all time.
Yeah, Sam Laporta, who can almost be, do the screen pass thing, can turn into an RB or a lethal wide receiver. And Bucs have had a hell of a ride. I just think it tends to end here, as I just do not feel like this game is close. I think it's a 31-20 games, and sad to say, Lions raw in the next game, but they have the better offense. Bucs have the better defense. I don't think there can be any arguments to that at all. But I just think that offense is more competent than the Bucs, and I think they move on.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Super Bowl quarterback. Remember, Jared Goff did get to a Super Bowl with LA. I'm taking the Lions. I'm not taking that much cash, but I did take the Lions to make the Super Bowl preseason. They had them play in Miami. That's not going to work out. But Detroit has given me no reason to back off that prediction. Their defense, while not necessarily on the same level as Tampa of late, they've still been good. The Rams were offensively potent, and they held them to 23.
Both of those games were like absolute night and day.
Yeah. And Detroit, I just think they have something special going this year. The city's involved. They're at home once again. If my picks are right, they're going to be hosting their division rivals or arch rivals at home in the NFC Championship game. It just seems like a season that Detroit is going to remember for years and years to come, given they've already hit that point because it's Detroit and they haven't had anything to remember for the last 30 years. That's not painful.
What's your main number 1 reason why you're not backing the Bucs?
I think the weapons for Detroit are better. I think Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are both better than Rashid White on his own. And once you have them in the tandem, they're going
Rashad.
to not wear down Rashad. I thought that sounded weird, but they're not going to wear down as fast as he is. They don't have a second guy. Sam Laporta, Cade Otton.
Yeah.
Not even a contest. Now, I will say this. Amon-Ra is above Mike Evans, but it's not as drastic. And I would say Godwin is a better number 2 wide receiver than Khalif Raymond, than Jameson Williams, or
Yeah, because
whoever.
Jameson Williams has definitely had sort of a boomer bust
Yeah.
type of year. He's either been, wow, holy crap, then he's on the milk carton.
But the way it works for Detroit is their number 2 wide receiver is really the 5th option in their offense. So I just think Detroit's offense is too potent. I think Detroit's offense is too potent, too hard to stop. And the Bucs, they've already lost to Detroit once at home. I can't see it going better on the road.
Did Detroit have like half of their team injured?
Yeah, that was the week Montgomery got hurt with the broken ribs. And you know what? I'm not going to say it. That's going to be my final thought unless you go to it. But anyways, we're both on Detroit for this one, but I do think it's just offense is a little bit better than Tampa's, and they're going to.
I think I've got 2 different final thoughts, so go ahead.
Okay, we'll get to that here shortly. Next up, the quote unquote game of the week. I think the one we just talked about, Detroit Tampa Bay, is going to be the most competitive, but Kansas City at Buffalo, the annual meeting in this round of the playoffs for these two teams. And Buffalo is going to host it for the first time. Buffalo did beat Kansas City in a very close game. But Kansas City, I think, in the last few weeks has figured out their offense just a little bit. They got Pacheco back.
Ball.
Well, they started not throwing to Kadarius Toney because they've had him constantly inactive. So I think they figured some things out. Buffalo, though, has won 6 in a row since Sean McDermott said he respected the Al-Qaeda terrorists. That is a true stat, and
that's a definite.
So, if you support Buffalo, you support Al-Qaeda because that's what drove them to victory.
Okie
That's what I'm going with, at least, and that should tell you who I'm picking in this game because
we know how much you love the Bills from your comments before.
Well, they support terrorism. Their head coach is basically Al-Qaeda. But Josh Allen, for the 4th consecutive year, was a top 2 fantasy quarterback, number 1, number 2, number 1 again this year. I traded him away for Brock Purdy and some picks because I need to rebuild in some leagues. But Kansas City, we've seen this before. Kansas City tends to rise up in this situation. They've beaten Buffalo in the playoffs multiple times, sometimes in dramatic and unexpected fashion. So this is the big hype game of the week. I don't think it lives up to the hype. I don't think it's going to be as good and competitive as they're going to make it out to be. But if it does, we'll all be welcomed and treated to a great game Sunday night. Joel, who do you got?
Yeah, this one I've gone back and forth with on. Just like, that's it. Okay, here are my points. 1, Josh Allen has been balling since the bye week. I just find it hard to fully trust him in such an important game. 2, Chiefs offense has been historically and hysterically bad. 3, Bills D is dinged up. Very much so. Every time I turn around, anytime when you're watching a game and another Bills player, somebody on the defense is down on the field. You can only deal with that so much when you're in the third string, the 4th string, the 5th string. You're in the who do we have left string? Patrick is the better QB of the 2. And even though 4, the game is in Buffalo, I think that somehow the Chiefs keep it close with their defense and those drive-in, sometimes game-saving ref calls that always seem to rescue the Chiefs when they need it. The Chiefs win close and ugly, 21-17, due to 5. Mahomes flipping a switch and some big help once again from the officials, which is coming. It's happened before so many times. Besides, the KC fan base probably feels like the refs owe them one for the Tony game. So once again, it's 21-17, and I'm picking the Chiefs.
I'm taking the Chiefs as well because I don't support the terrorists. Now, I do want to make a mention. While Buffalo has come in and won their last 6 games, here's who they've beaten and by how much. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs 20-17 in Kansas City, coming off the bye, 2 weeks to prepare. Good win. Then they pound Dallas Cowboys. But now we know Dallas is a fraud because we saw what happened in the playoffs. Then they beat the Chargers by 2. They beat the Patriots by 6, and then they beat the Dolphins, who are also kind of a fraud, by 7. And then they go in and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's like, we want to say, yeah, they've gotten hot. They haven't had the toughest road. Yes, wins over Dallas, Miami, Kansas City are good. Pittsburgh is, it's all right. But it's not like they've been going out and thrashing bad teams. They've been kind of just struggling to get by. They were down to Miami. They were down. I'm taking Kansas City. I trust Pat Mahomes a lot more than I trust Josh Allen in big moments.
One picky would not want chaos, and I knew.
Well, technically, this is chaos. Buffalo's at home. They are. I mean, I don't want Buffalo to ever win personally, but I just think Kansas City's got a better coach. I think they have a better quarterback, and I think they will get the job done. They're going to have to lean on Isaiah Pacheco. They have a better defense, and as you had mentioned, much healthier on both sides of the ball.
Every time Buffalo turn around, the Buffalo defense is dropping like flies.
Yeah, it's in bad shape for Buffalo. I do think the winner of this game gets tattooed the week after, especially if it is Baltimore, because Baltimore, if they can get by Houston, which I don't think they're going to do because of the rust, they'll get that rust off and they'll be firing on all the cylinders, and they're just going to pound whoever comes out of this game. But I think it's going to be Kansas City as well, and I'm hopeful that's what happens as well. But I just trust Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid a little bit more, and frankly, I almost think being at home adds a little bit of nerves to the Buffalo Bills because, well, their fans are very vocal, as I found out earlier this year, and they are unrealistic, and you start falling behind, they will turn on you very quickly. So that's the divisional round, for better or worse. Joel is still destroying me in picks, so he actually picked all chalk other than Kansas City, so maybe that's the key to success in this game. So Joel, I'm going to go to you for final thoughts.
Final thoughts, I have 1A and 1B as interesting habit of snacks for the Baltimore Ravens. Apparently, they like Uncrustables. Sandwich, the familiar purple packaging. Apparently they're the perfect workout snack. They're so perfect. 30 to 60 packs disappearing a day, and 7,500 calories eaten per season. They're favorites on the Ravens snack wall.
All right.
So light final thought. And 1B, this would be filed under when you're about to say something or ask a question.
I know where this is going because this is going to be my final thought.
You should. Oh, am I taking your final thought?
I think so. Go ahead.
when you have a certain question that you're about to ask a head coach, you should have a Windows thing pop up in your eyeballs saying, "This is really stupid. You probably shouldn't ask this." Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles was talking to reporters on Tuesday and appeared to be just a little bit bewildered after a reporter asked about the weather affecting the game. As, of course, it did not appear that the reporter realized the game was going to be played in a dome. As Todd Bowles responded, "You do know we play indoors. They have a dome." The coach responded, "Ouch." And that's my 1B.
Yeah, that was going to be mine. I will expand on it because the question was, how are you going to do with the weather in Detroit? And Todd Bowles took it well because he said, well, we're only going to be at it for about 30 seconds from the bus to the stadium, so I don't think we're going to have to prepare much for it. But first of all, they all should be domes up there because the weather this time of year is abysmal, and we don't want to have moved games because a bunch of cowards don't want to play in wind. Play in the snow. Be a man. As we've already mentioned, Buffalo. But if you are a reporter, you should at least know the building you're going to before you say something that dumb. So I guess since that was going to be mine, Joel, I knew he was going to, but it's fine. It's a good one. It had to come up.
I saw that, and I'm just going, you're sort of like, huh? Did they really ask that?
So, reminder, everybody, 7 football games left because I don't count the Pro Bowl, and neither should you. Before we go to the dark
It's
times and get
flag
ready for the
football. They keep
NFL draft,
score. Nobody really wants to watch.
we do have the XFL, USFL, now UFL merged coming in the spring, so that's at least something to look forward to.
How come the
And of
Panthers
course,
aren't being sent there?
could you imagine that? Hey, Carolina, go over there for 4 months. I just want to see what happens. I don't think it would go well. I think Carolina would dominate because they have the best athletes and they should win every game, but I don't have a lot of confidence in them either. Anyways, that's our time. Sports Shuffle. We only have a few shows left before we start going dark and deep off season. Let's get into the end, Joel.
I know it's like it's like all of a sudden you do the games and you're like, oh man, there's so many picks, there's so many recaps I have to write and do this and do that and do that, and all of a sudden when it's over, you're sad.
Yeah, and usually I have my San Jose Sharks hockey to look forward to, but they suck, and that just brings me more pain. So, waiting for the Rays to come back in April, and it's going to be dark times for 2 months.
How about this bizarro world? The Edmonton Oilers are actually good.
Edmonton Oilers are good, and the Toronto Maple Leafs are absolute frauds. They haven't beat anybody who isn't absolutely terrible. Anyways, that's our time for the Sports Shuffle. I am Flying Ryan Reingold Christ along with
Tampa Motormouth Joel Verlin.
And we'll be back next week to recap these games, toast the demise of the Buffalo Bills because that makes me happy. And we'll talk about the championship game that Kansas City is definitely going to be in.
And to see how wrong we are or were.
See how wrong I am, Joel. You've been killing me all season long. I don't expect that to change because I want chaos. And if we get chaos, it'll be a fun, exciting NFL weekend. But there's no better story than the Bills losing because that's just a classic. Then you've got Mahomes and Lamar Jackson in the or the upstart Texans in the championship game. And then if I'm right, it's Green Bay, Detroit in the NFC championship game. You can't get a better story than that. So
I can't see too many multiverses where the Bucks are playing for the NFC championship this year.
That would be quite absurd, but there's still a chance they would host that game should it happen. So with that, we going.